What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph Brocast. I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt. And joining us today is the wonderfully awesome Barton Damer from Already Been Chewed.
Hey,
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. We've been talking about this for like a really long time.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm glad we could finally get it all hooked up.
Brograph is a supplement to our site, brograph.com, which is a motion graphics site with tutorials, plugins, podcast talks, and other MoGraph stuff. And on the podcast, we talk about everything from motion graphics to Cinema 4D, After Effects plugins, render engines, doing business, doing taxes, being a contractor, or working for the man. And we aren't going to do much other than just like dive right into, I think, business topics today.
Yeah.
So I hope you have your topics ready because I got nothing written down. We're just going to have a bunch of fun.
I just figured we know Barton pretty well, and we've talked to him. We had him at the first DFWC 4D meetup, and that was really fun, and he talked business and stuff, and it seems like every time we hang out, like when we hung out at NAB, it was like I could just listen to you talk for hours.
Nice.
So I was like, let's get you on the show so that, I can hear you talk some more.
Yeah.
So we got some really fun stuff lined up. Matt, you and I have been talking to some people this week. It's another one of those like we can't tell you type situations, but like so much is going on. We have some stuff in store for the next few months that I think is just going to be really great, and I think everybody listening is just going to enjoy what we've come up with here, and it's just going to be something that's beneficial for everybody and for the community. And that's about all we can say.
That's what we're
so
hoping
far.
For, at least.
That's what we're
It may just
hoping
crash
for.
and burn, but whatever.
Yeah, I hope not.
I hope
Spend
not
a lot of
either.
money.
Yeah.
So, we'll see where that goes. So we'll get right into the topics,
Yeah, totally.
which is business. And I think the best way to start for anybody, Barton, who doesn't know who you are, just give us your background a little bit. For
Anybody
people
who
are brand
doesn't
new
know
to
who you are, who hasn't watched like all your NAB talks and
Right.
stuff like that. If you don't know who Barton is, shame on you.
So Barton Damer, and I started the studio Already Been Chewed. Website is alreadybeenchewed.tv, and we are 7 years old now and counting. So it's been a super fun, adventurous roller coaster of highs and lows over the last 7 years. We're currently on a high, so it's a good time to do an interview.
That's good.
Started the studio about 7 years ago. We've been fortunate enough to be able to work with Nike and
That's awesome.
Under Armour, Adidas. We do a lot of sports marketing, not only in the sneaker industry, but also in the action sports industry. So we do things for Street League Skateboarding on ESPN, the Do Tour that airs on NBC, a variety of different things for a lot of different industries, but we definitely love our sports and our sneakers.
Yeah. I see a lot of the. You guys create some awesome sneaker work.
Thanks.
Like some of the stuff that I don't even know how you do it. But a lot of the sneaker work, it's funny. I've seen a lot of, it seems like Cinema 4D is really big in the sneaker industry.
Yeah.
As weird as that is,
Yeah.
like it seems like sneakers are very niche with Cinema 4D and,
I see a lot of that.
yeah, like I think, what's his name down in Florida? Grayscale Gorilla guy.
David Brodeur.
Yeah, David Brodeur.
Yeah,
he also
Locked
does,
and Loaded.
Yeah, he does
Yeah.
a lot of the sneaker stuff as well, and I've seen him do some. I think it's X particle stuff with it as well.
Yep.
For creating the seams or whatever.
Yep.
But I don't know. Where do you even get started with that? Like, I mean, okay, so walk me through the process of actually creating a sneaker, because it seems like it would be really, really hard.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a couple things that I have to give like a disclaimer to on stuff like that. So when I first started doing sneaker work, it's a combination of everything from photos to 3D models. So not everything you see is a 3D model. Some of it is renderings that are composited with photography.
Okay.
Others are actual models of shoes. And so I've worked closely with Joe from Sketchbook Inc. Over the years to get the most amazing shoe models ever. And that guy's been doing it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years for Nike, as well as some of the largest brands out there. So he's super killer and has provided me with a lot of shoe models on different projects that I've worked on. Lately, within our internal team, we have the ability to do that all in-house now. And we've got a great team doing all sorts of things on levels that I could never handle by myself. So definitely need to give a shout out to our team. And while we're talking about them, I'll go ahead and name them. We have Thomas King, Brian Talkish, Mark Wilson, Krista Stewart, Donnie Smith, my wife Sandra, and myself. And then we're also bringing on a new person the beginning of June named Aaron Smock.
And you also use a bunch of freelancers as well, right?
From time to time, yes.
Okay. So freelancers, and do you bring them in locally, or are they freelanced out throughout the country?
Usually remote.
Cool.
Yeah.
And do you now, because that's basically what Dave and I do with our company. You know, anytime we need to hire any freelancers, we always work remotely.
Yeah.
Have you run into any issues with remote work as well? Like, you guys work in Dropbox, right?
Yeah, we work straight through Dropbox. So any freelancers that we're working with are saving their files directly to our file system. So we, at any given moment can open their files, access their files, render their files, things like that. So
have there been any issues that you found dealing with freelancers and stuff, like that are working remotely or working with this kind of structure and stuff?
I think the biggest challenge is when things really hit the fan and the deadlines are tight and you need 3 or 4 revisions made in the course of an afternoon. Yeah, that's where it gets challenging, and that's where and why we have an internal team that we can rely on. When we do outsource things, it's typically because we're working on the cool stuff and we needed some help getting some of the other things done.
Cool.
So
cool. Okay, so let's move to your background.
Yes.
Okay. Because this is something, we heard you talk at the DFWC 4D. We've got that one up on our website if you guys want to check it out. But so in that talk, you had talked about like kind of coming over, starting your own thing. And, you've mentioned to me that you kind of decided to do that once, a majority of your income was coming from the freelance stuff. Tell me a little bit, but I don't know too much about your background.
Sure.
Like where you started. Like, did you go to college? What did you study? Was it straight up 3D animation? Because I know I started in video production. Yeah. I didn't have any 3D animation up until I met Dave, and Dave taught me basically everything. So give us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, let me tell you a few things that I think hopefully will be inspirational to anybody that might be listening. A couple things. So first of all, I had a career in graphic design for about 7 to 8 years before I ever knew what motion graphics was. Okay. And I was bored with graphic design. There's a lot of bad jobs in graphic design. Yes. And thankfully, I didn't even really have a bad job doing graphic design, but I was already bored.
Were you doing a lot of the same similar stuff and style that you're doing here?
Not at all.
No.
So at that time I was a good 7 to 8 years into my career, and was literally thinking about what am I going to do next. Yeah. Not graphic design. And I saw my first motion graphics reel ever, and it was Shiloh. Jose Gomez, Andre Stringer.
I don't think I know that one.
Shiloh.tv.
No, I don't know that one.
Yeah, I've seen.
You need to get familiar. Yeah, so I saw their motion reel. And what was even more interesting to me was that Andre Stringer was actually a skateboard filmer and editor from the same area that I grew up. So what happened was I went off to college down in Florida. Where'd you go? And I went off to college down in Florida. And then while I was off at college, Andre Stringer was actually filming and editing skate videos of my friends. And so I've never met Andre Stringer, but he has no idea what a huge inspiration he has been to me or my career, because right at the time that I was thinking about just being done with graphic design and trying to find something else to do for a career, I saw Shiloh's motion reel and I was like, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Like, it was the moment where graphic design was just kind of like, I got to do something, you know? But when I saw that motion reel, like, I was blown away. And then when I found out that, like, he was a skateboarder, a filmer, and, you know, things like that, I was like, that could be me, you know?
I skateboarded, you know, growing up as well. Not very well. I was never very good. You know, I could only really land a kickflip, and that was about it. But not while moving.
Right.
Could you do a double 360 ollie to a half something?
Yeah,
I don't know what that means.
That's what everyone learns the first time they get on a skateboard.
I have no idea if that's a real thing or not.
It's not. No. So
I'm just saying words.
I would say, so when I went to college, like, I had a buddy who skateboarded as well, and he was, and also did BMX, and he was really big. Like, video production is surprisingly very big.
It is.
In, like, the skate world and, you know, the BMX world and stuff, because they're just, you know, that's kind of where some of these guys learn and stuff. Were you around that, or did you have any background in that because of being in the skate world?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened originally, at 18 years old, I blew out my ACL and tore my meniscus while skateboarding.
Oh, I broke my ankle while skateboarding. That's the last time I was on a skateboard.
Yeah. So at 18 years old, freshman in college, the only two ways I knew how to meet people were on the basketball court or on a skateboard. And I couldn't do either of those. I had to wait 3 months limping around college campus as a freshman until I could get my knee reconstructed at Christmas break.
Oh, jeez.
Got my knee reconstructed at Christmas break, and then it's a year-long process. And this was 1994 that I had the knee done. So it was even a longer rehab process back then than it is now. Yeah. So during the time that I needed to rehab my knee, I was a public relations major at the time.
Okay.
And with the public relations major, I was required to take like an intro to drawing class.
Okay.
And I was, you know, just
so you're going for public relations.
Intro to drawing class.
Okay.
And I can't do anything that I want to do, so I sat in my room and drew and poured all my time and efforts into that intro to drawing course.
Okay.
And very quickly found out that I could draw basically photorealistic with a pencil.
Very nice.
Could paint photorealistic.
Nice.
And very quickly my teachers were like, you need to change your major.
Yeah, but to something like graphic design, you know?
Well, so I changed my major to commercial art. So I know how to oil paint. I know how to gouache paint, acrylic paint, all of that stuff, and I hate all of it. I think I did it in order to graduate, and I tried one painting after I graduated and was like, no.
Oh, that's funny.
I just don't like my style as an artist. I consider myself a human inkjet printer, but that's not an artist.
Okay. Yeah.
So an artist, in my opinion, has a unique vision. I don't have a unique vision when I pick up a pencil or a paintbrush, but I can recreate stuff.
Okay. So you're much more mechanical? You know,
when it comes to those things, like I would prefer to sit down and photorealistically paint chrome pipes because I just don't like my style if I sketch something. So it's really hard for me to actually draw anything. Okay. Because I get hung up on thinking that my sketches suck and wanting to make them look photorealistic. Yeah. So like my wife will tease me because I'll even sit down and draw stuff with my kids, and 4 hours later I'm still drawing and they're tired of it. You know, they drew for the first 30 minutes, but I just had to sit there and make it perfect. So
that's really
I get
funny.
hung up, and that's why I don't.
Do you find you have
that stuff too much.
That perfectionist with all your work as well?
Yes.
Is there a point where you just have to say, okay, I got to step away?
There's always, you always have to hit deadlines, and you always have to be creative within deadlines. And so I've definitely learned, like, hey, this might not be the best thing I've ever done, but I'm pretty proud of it, given I had 48 hours to do it. Under the circumstances, this piece is one of my favorites. You know, that's kind of how I look at stuff. Versus like, could it be better? Could it be different? Could I continue to tweak it? Of course. But my goal was to get it done on time and on budget, and I'm pumped at what the results were within that.
So that whole photorealism thing, is that why you chose Octane? Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot.
No, I mean, Octane, we switched to Octane about a year ago, and a lot of it was just, looking around the industry and seeing what's missing from your work.
Okay.
And so we switched to Octane for that reason. It's also just way faster in rendering. I think we're rendering maybe 60 times faster than we were a year ago.
Yeah, for sure.
All of our GPUs and everybody connected and things like that. So it's also a workflow thing. We were using render farms, and in the first quarter of 2016, I'd spent 10 grand on render farms, and I was like, I think I need to not spend that money anymore and just go get some PCs and bring all that rendering in house.
Yeah.
So.
That's the thing about render farms with me is that when I have used them, I feel like I'm like getting everything like super, super perfect and worrying about whether or not, I'm going to have an issue. What I like being able to do when I'm rendering is start a render, and maybe the first few frames I'm like, oh, you know what? I really want to change that thing. And I can stop it, and it didn't cost me anything. Or I could do a whole round and it didn't cost me anything, and I can kind of rein it in that way, and you've got to start thinking about money when you're doing the farm. But anyway, let's jump back to where we were.
Yeah, sorry, I jumped way forward. I skipped basically to, the good stuff. But okay, so you went to school, you studied commercial art.
Yeah, so I blew out my ACL, ended up changing my degree to commercial art, and graduated, got a job doing graphic design right away. Was doing graphic design, like I mentioned, maybe like 7 to 8 years before even knowing what motion graphics was.
And where were you working?
I had a couple different jobs outside of Washington, D.C.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then what I ended up doing was I learned.
So what brought you to Allen?
I learned motion graphics through another skateboard industry.
Okay.
Another skateboard injury.
Oh, okay.
So I believe it was like 28 years old, maybe something like that. I was. Again, skateboarding, I blew out my other ACL and tore my meniscus. So this was going on a second reconstruction. And usually one follows the other, because what happens is you rehab the one that you had reconstructed, but you favor the one that's never been reconstructed. And so you end up just blowing out the one that you favor. Hence Derrick Rose, if you follow basketball. And so that's kind of what happened to him. So at about 28 years old or so, blew out my ACL and tore meniscus, had to have it reconstructed. And in the meantime, I wanted to stay connected with my friends that were skating and things like that. So I started filming and editing skateboard videos. So I was literally a product of iMovie. No lie. This was like when iMovie was first introduced. I want to say it was maybe... Gosh, I'm going to get all my time frames mixed up. But I started in iMovie, was editing videos, and quickly realized I had more fun dropping in JPEGs into iMovie and animating little titles over the top of them to create intros for the skateboarders. Yeah. And so realized that iMovie was just kind of like a starter kit type thing. And then I flew out to LA, took a week-long crash course in Final Cut Pro.
Really?
Yeah. Got pretty good with Final Cut Pro.
Which version did you start with?
Oh, man. I don't don't even know the numbers. Okay. Yeah.
That's all right.
Probably like 2 or 3 at that time.
I started at 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
that was around 04.
That was
04.
2003, 2004. Yeah.
2004 time.
Yeah. Yep. So quickly found out that not really an editor, even though I enjoyed editing skate videos. And that's right around the time that I realized what motion graphics were. Okay. And so...
so we kind of have a similar background, video editing and stuff like that. But you've got this whole, you've got the whole graphic design background, which I am incredibly jealous of. Yeah. And because I've always said, I feel like to be really successful in motion graphics and motion design, you really need to have a good design eye, and like know those core design principles and stuff, which I'm sure you learned about in school for that. See, I always feel like people moving from like graphic design to motion design are going to be much more successful than people who are starting in motion design and then trying to learn their graphic design principles.
Yeah, I came
from.
from video as well, and it was the exact same thing. It was like I knew how to edit and do all that stuff, and then I got into motion graphics, and like the technical side of it made sense to me, but like I had a horrible time with the design sense until I sat down and actually realized, hey, I have to actually learn design principles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to your point, when I very first learned what After Effects was, I just started keyframing my Photoshop layers left, right, add an easy ease on things, and people started telling me how good I was at motion graphics. And it wasn't that I was good at it; it's that I made the design look good first, and then I just added subtle animations to it, and people were starting to freak out when they would see my work, and it was like, oh well, I just keyframed, a few things, and so that kind of snowballed. As I'm working in After Effects and learning motion graphics, I kind of looked around and said, okay, what's missing from my work that I'm seeing in Shiloh's work or Buck's work or Stardust, and it was definitely like 3D that was missing, and that depth and realism on things was missing from my work. So I started analyzing the different softwares, Maya, 3D Max, Cinema 4D, and the more research that I did, I just felt like if I went to Maya or if I went to 3D Max, I was going down an entirely different career path. And for me, I wanted to be a designer still. I did not want to be a guy that worked at Pixar. That wasn't my goal. I didn't want to be rigging and animating characters. I wanted to be a designer, and motion was just an extension and a new way for me to express myself through the artwork or design work that I was creating.
That's super cool.
And so I just knew very, very much so that, like, okay, that's not the path I want to go. I have no desire to work on Pixar films or anything like that. I want to be a designer still. So as I analyzed the different software, Cinema 4D seemed like it was the best piece of software to be able to remain a designer. Excuse me. Remain a designer. Remain a designer without having to go down this completely separate career path, and it would allow me to get some amazing results very quickly. And so, funny story is my very first project that I ever did in Cinema 4D, I extruded some text, and it was the word collide. It was for a magazine from a place I was working at the time. And I also used like a displacement map on like a sphere or something, and I made the word look like it was colliding. And then I rendered it out, brought it into Photoshop, added some smoke, added like all my Photoshop techniques and things like that.
Now, were you rendering out just a still, or were you actually doing animation?
It's just a still.
Okay.
Yep. And so I rendered out that still, all of a sudden my design work or my illustration work had this depth I was looking for. I could really bring things to life in a way that I couldn't do in Photoshop, and I was pumped. So that illustration I posted online, and this was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago when Twitter was like really hot, and you would get like 100 retweets on stuff, and that artwork went viral. Like people would retweet it. I would see it posted on all different design blogs and inspiration.
If I look for it right now, what would I find? How would I find it?
You could probably just Google search my name and it pops up. I'm not sure if it still does or not.
Collide. Yeah, there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
That was your first piece ever?
That was my first piece that I'd ever done in Cinema 4D. I got asked to write a tutorial on how I did it. So, I did the tutorial. It was a terrible tutorial.
Who was it for?
Who was it for?
The tutorial.
The tutorial is on Go Media's website. I think it's like gomedia.us. I don't recall. So it was on Go Media's website. And then get this, I got an email from the CEO of Maxon.
Was it Paul at the time?
Yes.
Okay, so Paul.
Yeah. Okay. We know him as Paul, but not all the listeners. Right. So it's the CEO of Maxon is emailing me. I was freaking out in a bad way because I was like, do I have like illegal software? Like, am I in trouble? Like, why the heck is the CEO of Maxon like emailing me directly?
Yeah.
So he emails me, says, your work is gorgeous and what you're doing with our product. Would you like to, do some tutorials for Cineversity? Would you like to speak at NAB? And I was just like, yes.
Jeez. So just all of this off of one picture?
That one picture.
Wow.
Yeah, got the email from him. And at
so
this
did you
point,
did you know Cinema 4D that well?
No, I knew how to bring my paths from Illustrator in and extrude them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the first thing all of us learn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and so you can imagine at that point, I felt a little bit of pressure. Like, I better actually figure this software out.
Yeah.
What am I going to write a tutorial on?
So you've almost been pigeonholed into learning Cinema 4D.
I had to. Yeah, I didn't want to let the CEO down.
Oh man, that's so funny. That's so funny.
Yeah, so that was my very first project there, and then I ended up doing a tutorial that I think is still on Maxon's website, the Cineversity website. And man, those tutorials were bad, but I hear from people that they were super helpful. But
from people, really?
No, it's people.
People. Okay, I was gonna say. Oh man.
Yeah, actually, had somebody this year at NAB, almost 7 years later, or more, say one of those tutorials that I did back then was super, super helpful for them. So I was like, oh, that's cool.
Huh. That's crazy. That's so awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
That's that is a, and how long ago was that? You said?
ABC started 7 years ago. I learned C4D probably two years before starting ABC, something like that.
Huh.
So.
See, but that style, for 9 years ago, that's really awesome. That's
Thanks.
still very current, You could do that nowadays and it still look good.
Thanks. Well, to be honest, that's one of my goals is when I create artwork, even if it's motion work, I don't want it to be just whatever's on trend.
Yeah.
I want to look back, and if I can look at something I did 5 years ago or more and still be proud of it, then I think that's a really good goal to have.
Yeah.
Obviously, you advance and evolve as an artist, so you look back and some things you're like, I could have done that way better.
Yeah.
But in general, I think when I go to create something, I want this to still be good several years from now. I don't necessarily want somebody to look at it and be like, oh, I remember that trend.
Yeah. I remember Sketch and Tune.
Yeah. And so part of that is just designing with purpose,
Right.
If you can put a purpose behind what you're doing, then it makes it a little more timely. So for instance, the Vans anamorphic artwork.
Yeah.
Anamorphic artwork kind of comes and goes in its popularity, but when you see how it was used in the story it was told, it's no, that's still going to be a relevant spot. It's not just oh, I remember when anamorphic imagery was hot. So hopefully that's the way we come across with the solutions that we're finding.
Right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, how did some of the let's go this route. When you first started doing this, learning C4D and creating stuff like this, were the companies that you were working for at the time whatever, no, we don't want to invest in C4D, what is this C4D stuff, were you trying to show them, hey, we should move this, or were you all they don't need to know this, I'm gonna go do my own stuff,
Yeah, so it's a good question. My employer was very supportive and purchased the software.
Oh, cool.
So I must have done a decent job of pitching it to him.
Yeah.
Once we got it, we were working on some conference promotionals and materials, and so a lot of the 3D work was going towards promoting events and things like that. But to a certain degree, it was kind of I don't know that we need this a whole lot.
Yeah.
So I was hooked, though, and so the work that I was doing nights and weekends was starting to get some notoriety. And then in 2009, I won an award for Digital Artist of the Year.
Wow.
And that was...
I didn't know that.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so 2009, I got Digital Artist of the Year, and that was awarded to me by Computer Arts Magazine.
Okay.
Which was, at that time, Computer Arts Magazine was the magazine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's still an amazing magazine, but I just think people, digital age, it's turned into a creative blog.
Yeah, absolutely.
These days. But So to win that award, it was Computer Arts, Intel, and 3D World that were holding that award competition. So I won that award, and it was kind of weird and surreal. And you guys probably know what I'm talking about because all the work that we do is in a digital space, right? And so when you see people in person, there's not a whole lot to it because it's not like we're performers,
right?
It's not like we're going to get up on stage and wow somebody, but but what you're doing in a digital space, you end up having fans or things like that. And so I'm working a full-time job. And at this point, I'm making $65,000 a year trying to raise a family of 5.
Holy cow.
It's not easy to do.
No.
And that's a good salary too. Like I'm not complaining about that salary, but when you're trying to raise a family of 5 it's difficult. So part of me is thinking to myself, I just won Digital Artist of the Year in an international competition, and I'm broke. I can either be like, oh, that's cool, like something happened in a fake digital space that I won, or I can be like, no, this actually happened. Like I need to do something about this. And I wanted to do something about it. And winning that award kind of gave me some confidence to keep pushing myself, pushing my style, realizing that people were liking it and paying attention. And so I think that was like a really good confidence boost for me. And then that's what kind of led down the road of freelancing and starting ABC, if you wanted to transition to talk about that a little bit.
What was the piece that you won Artist of the Year for?
So I did a album cover and tour poster. It was originally supposed to be an album cover, but they ended up using it for their Australian tour for Wolf Mother, which was my favorite band at that time.
Okay.
Nice.
So it was super awesome project. Loved getting to work with those guys.
This one?
Let's see. Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
That's it. So
that was show notes.
Yeah.
That was the piece, and again, like I was brand new to Cinema 4D. That may have been like my second project in Cinema 4D I'd ever done.
Wow.
So all I did was extrude text, render some spheres, and
I see a few
Photoshop
pyramids
the rest.
in there.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so you started freelancing.
Yeah, so like I mentioned before, just with like trying to raise a family, things like that, won an award. It was like,
So when you started freelancing, were people coming to you saying like, hey, do you want to do some work for me? Hey, or were you actually trying to go out and like get clients and stuff like that?
Yeah, the great thing is about the internet is that people can find your work online.
Yes.
And so in my situation, I was just posting my work on, everything from Behance to YouTube to Vimeo. Dribble didn't exist at that time. I'm trying to think if I was on Flickr, posting my work on Flickr. Things like that, and I was getting incoming inquiries.
Wow.
And a lot of them. So for 3 years straight, I did exactly the startup stories you hear about. I would work from, I had a great job. There's literally no overtime, no weekends. We were creating stock imagery, so there was no conflict of interest for me to do client work. And that's kind of a big point because I feel like launching out to do your own business in an unethical way is just kind of a recipe for disaster.
And it's tough because a lot of people will be working for a company, and then when they jump off, they almost want to try and steal some of those clients away from them. So that's good that you were working and so that you didn't have that conflict of interest.
No, because we were creating stock imagery. So as long as I didn't create stock imagery, I was golden.
There you go.
And my boss was referring clients to me.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and I got a great relationship with my boss. I still hang out with him to this day. He's one of my business mentors, things like that. So it was a really good way to be able to launch out on my own. But for 3 years straight, was literally at work from 8:30 to 5:30 or whatever those hours are. Come home, eat dinner, play with the kids. Wintertime it gets dark by like 5 o'clock at night, so winter times were amazing because kids, wife would be in bed by like 9 o'clock. It's been dark for 4 hours already. I jump back on the box from 9 at night till 2 in the morning.
Jeez.
Man, that sounds all too familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're looking at that's 5 hours of freelance you can do in a night. I don't watch TV. I'll watch NBA TV when I go to bed to catch the highlights, but I can't sit and watch a full game.
Yeah.
And then I would do that. Go to bed at 2, 3 in the morning, wake up, be to work by 8:30 in the morning.
Jeez.
And I did that for 3 years straight. And over the course of 3 years, financially, it just made sense. I was winning some awards that were giving me confidence to realize there's actually a demand for my work, which is super important.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned at NAB that I had gotten to a point where I could fill my schedule. But I wanted to fill my schedule with things I cared about, because the last thing I wanted to do was go launch a business and be designing, animations, websites, or business cards for realtors or something.
Right.
Realtors are great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind being a realtor and flipping properties, but as a designer, I don't want to design their business cards for a living, nor do I want to start a company that's doing that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it became important to me that, okay, can I fill my time nights and weekends? Sure. Once I fill my time, can I start being selective and fill it with things that I actually care about? And so that was happening, and I was getting clients that I loved. I was working with different skateboard brands. I worked with DGK, a popular skateboard brand for apparel and skateboards, of course. I was working with Supra Footwear. And so a lot of interesting gigs that were coming my way, and that were also getting noticed online and kind of going viral and blowing up on Behance or whatever and things like that. And so again, I've talked a lot about confidence, but as artists, I find, at least in my dealings with artists, there's two personalities for artists. There's the, oh, I'm not good, look at how terrible I am. When I jump on Behance, I'm kind of depressed and think I should quit.
Yeah, that's me.
There's that's everybody. That's every artist. And then when I do something great, there's the, oh, I'm amazing. I should be charging $600 an hour for my work. Get off me, client.
That is also me.
You bother me. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it feels like, to a certain degree, that's the way artists are. So, either no confidence or too much confidence.
Yeah.
And it's finding that balance. So being able to fill my schedule with the types of work that I enjoyed was huge. And then I started cutting back how much I would work. And so by the end, I was working 15 hours of freelance a week. So, that's a couple 2 to 3 hour nights on weekdays, and maybe 4 hours a day on Saturday, 4 hours a day on Sunday.
All filled with work that you wanted to do, right?
Work I was pumped on. Yeah. Come back from a job that I already liked, but now I get to go do stuff I love.
Yeah.
You know what
so
I
I'm
mean?
assuming you'd be at work, and looking forward to actually getting home and doing that work.
So pumped. Yeah, so
that's
pumped.
Cool.
And so I was making 75% of my income working 15 hours a week.
Wow. 15 hours a week?
Yeah. So it started to make sense, but obviously the scariest part about that is actually cutting loose the salary and going out on your own.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
I'm the sole provider for 5 people. Wow. My wife works within our company and helps us with all of our payroll, finances, taxes, things like that. But at that time, she didn't have to do a whole lot, for that. So basically stay-at-home mom at that point, taking care of our kids, but no financial income from her side.
Yeah.
So, you talk about quitting a job that you actually like to go do this. So scary.
Yeah.
So scary.
So did you, we always say, got to have a good, got to have a good amount of bank saved up, before you jump out on your own.
Yep.
And that's kind of what we did. We probably didn't have as much as you should have when we jumped out, but we got lucky.
No one ever does.
Yeah.
It's like having kids. You're never ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is that did you do that?
Not really, because like I said, I was trying to raise a family of 5 off of $65,000 a year.
Yeah.
So I believe everything I read said you needed like 6 months worth of income saved up. I think I had 2 or 3.
Okay. So see, we had about the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had about the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Right. Yeah.
So you jumped off. Were you nervous, like going from 15 hours a week to try and fill your time with 40 hours a week?
I was so scared.
And were you also able to do that? And then I can't remember my other question, but that's good enough for now.
Yeah. So the last day at my job, I'd put in my notice, things like that, was a Friday. I literally had no work lined up for Monday. My first day starting my company. There's no work lined up. Saturday, I go to a skateboard competition just to attend. I wasn't like in it or anything. So I'm attending the skateboard competition, and I get introduced to a creative director that's working on some Scion projects. Monday, I start working on a Scion project.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
So that Monday, I started working on a Scion project. And I mean, it's a straight up miracle, but literally for the first 4 years of ABC, slammed, like working 60 hours a week. And the whole time having no clue what I'm going to work on 2 or 3 days from now, or a week from now, or a month from now. No long-term contracts, none whatsoever. But then when I would look back each month, it's like, whoa, like I killed it last month. Like I have no clue what I'm working on next week. And that stresses me out. But I killed it last month. And so...
Is it still similar?
It's the exact same thing, but with 8 people. So we have no long-term contracts, and that's a blessing and a stress point. Because the good news is we don't necessarily have to jump for anybody if we don't feel we should. So there's a lot of businesses that they have 1 large contract, 3 large contracts, you name it, and you just work for that company. Like you're not a freelancer, you're not even a businessman at that point.
It was like 2 jobs ago before I jumped off. The main client for that job was Samsung. That's a big client. And so but every single department was doing something different for Samsung.
Yes.
When Samsung's Note 7 disaster happened and it was all catching fire, Samsung decided to stop putting out any of these videos or anything like that. The company went under.
Exactly.
Because they didn't have any of that.
Yeah. And so the blessing is there's not a particular contract that we could lose that would put us out of business. And then the stressful side of that is there's not a particular contract that I can look forward to. But we have a history and a growth chart that proves that we can support this. And so that's part of the factors that go into deciding on the growth or not the growth.
Now, let me ask you about your personal life, like work-life balance. How did... Because I know sometimes, me personally, I only have 1 kid and a wife, and that's hard enough. I can only imagine 5. And like, how do you keep that time? How do you keep that balance? I mean, I'm sure your wife has to be super supportive of what you're doing in order to get that in order to succeed.
Absolutely, and I get that question a lot because I am a family man. And every decision that I make with ABC is fueled by, is this going to improve the lives of my family? So if I'm hiring a new person, it's because I want more family time.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you ever worry that you may be jumping or taking a risk that may directly impact the family? Like, I'm gonna take a risk and try out this something, I don't know, that costs a bunch of money, but I may have to work extra hours or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
that's a very vague question.
It's always risky and it's always scary. Like it doesn't matter the scenario. It's the life of entrepreneurship. There's a chart that I posted on my Instagram one time. I'll see if I can find it for you guys.
Cool.
But it's essentially showing like the life of an entrepreneur, and it's like one day, you know, they feel like they're rich. The next day, they feel like they're bankrupt.
Oh my gosh,
the next day,
that is totally
they're
it.
like, I'm on top of the world. The next day, it's like, I suck. I'm a terrible boss. You know, like, and it's unfortunately that is the way it is. And I think I just have to take the moments that are the high moments and really appreciate them.
Yeah.
Like, don't let those take you for granted. You know, even in the midst of like gnarly situations or gnarly stress situations, like I've got to stop, take time, and be super thankful that like, oh my word, we just delivered a Nike, Under Armour, and Adidas project all in the same week.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know too many people that can say that.
Absolutely.
And I don't know of too many people that would get as pumped as I get about that.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's like epic.
Yeah,
You know?
totally. Huh. Okay, so let's transition over to something that you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Which is and it's almost like it's risque to talk about it, you know, in our industry. You don't talk about it at all,
it's
really.
Taboo. Nobody wants to talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about it. And
let's get it out on the table.
You want to talk about pricing, you know, as far as like, you know, what to charge and, you know, what and, you know, I say that now, and I guarantee you a whole bunch of people who are listening to this podcast right now just turned up their radio.
Yeah.
Because they want to know what is a big company like this charging for work, you know, from these big clients and stuff like that.
Right.
You know?
So the burning question is, how much am I supposed to charge? Right. Like nobody knows how much to charge. Nobody's sure.
Yeah.
So let's look at some numbers, and we can put some figures behind things.
Okay.
So let's do the math on some of this stuff. And let's start with, okay, so if you're a freelancer and you're trying to figure out like, what on earth do I charge? You can listen to podcasts, and you can probably find out that if you're freelancing for different studios, you're probably going to charge anywhere from $400 to $800 a day, depending on how good you are.
Okay.
And also depending on your location.
Okay. That seems about right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a huge margin, though.
Yeah.
Like, am I $400 or am I $800?
Right.
You just don't know. And so that's typically, you know, when you are going into a studio and you're providing like a high-end service for them. You know,
and that's just as a freelancer, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's different ways that a studio will work with you. So for instance, I kind of teased and mentioned that we're keeping the cool stuff here, and then we're outsourcing some of the things that we just need like help getting done.
Right.
So there's that aspect of freelancing, which is not fun, because you find out like, I'm working with Troika, or I'm working with PSYOP. Oh, but I'm doing the lower thirds. Yeah. And I'm doing the wipes. Yeah. You know, or whatever the case may be. So there's that side of freelancing that you find out about. And then there's the other side of freelancing, which is like, okay, I'm amazing, and people need me in order to do this type of spot. So first person that comes to my mind is Twisted Polly. You guys familiar with him?
I'm not, no.
Look him up.
Okay.
Twisted Polly, I'm not even going to attempt to say his name. I think he's from Sweden.
Okay.
Something like that. But I mean, this guy, pretty much anything cool that Nike's done, his hand's been on it. He's amazing. So there's guys like that who are freakishly talented and will be brought in.
Yeah, you can't Google search Twisted Polly because you just come up with a bunch of rope.
I got it. I got it right away.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
So just using him as an example, I would assume that his schedule is full of some pretty amazing projects that he can be incredibly selective on, because different studios probably need to bring him in to one up or raise the bar of what they can do internally.
Okay.
So there's kind of two different styles of freelancers there that we talked about. One who's like super talented and is going to raise the bar of what you can do internally, and then others that are going to like knock out what we don't have time for.
Right.
So that kind of tells you, first of all, am I at the $800 range? Am I at the $400 range? But the way you want to go about figuring out what on earth should I charge is first figure out how much money do you need to make. Okay. So let's look at this. Add up all your bills. So I'm married. That means I've got a house, a car, I've got kids, I've got to pay my own insurance, and I got to pay the government taxes.
Right.
So let's just assume that all my bills together equal $100,000. Okay. So that sounds awesome. 6 figures, right? Ooh, amazing. But keep in mind, the 6 figures, you've got to subtract your insurance and your taxes because those add up really quick.
Yeah.
And just to give you an idea, for a family of 5, our insurance is almost $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
So it's almost $24,000 a year coming out of that $100,000 right away.
Yeah. That's relatively cheap. Ours, for a family of 3, me, my wife, and my kid, is almost $1,300 a month.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Welcome to America. Woohoo.
So you got to subtract your insurance, right? Then you got to pay the government taxes. That's usually like 25%, things like that. So that's all coming out of that number. So let's do the actual math on that. If that's $100,000 a year, you want to divide that by 49 weeks a year. And 49 weeks means that you were able to take some vacation.
Yeah.
So don't divide it by 52, divide it by 49. So that's 2 weeks of vacation, 1 week of sick. Now, obviously, if you decide to work 52 weeks, you're going to make more money than what we're adding up here. But 49 weeks divided by, or $100,000 divided by 49 weeks is $2,040 per week. Okay. So $2,040 per week divided by 30 hours a week. Now, I did 30 hours a week because it's not very realistic to think you're going to be billing 40 hours a week. If you're billing 40 hours a week, you're working 70 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right.
So you could be like, I'm at my desk 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
You know, I'm definitely not working, billing that whole time.
And if you're billing 30 hours a week, you're probably working a 50-hour week.
Yeah.
More than likely.
Yeah.
It's very doubtful that you're billing 30 and only working 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
So if you do the math on that, you're essentially $68 an hour.
$68?
Yep.
Wow.
$68 an hour, which is a $544 day rate. Okay. So it's a $544 day rate, which sounds awesome because some people out there are saying $100,000, I'd be hitting the jackpot. I don't have wife and kids or insurance that costs that much. That's a ton of money.
Yeah.
And so they're right. For them, that might be a ton of money. And so this helps you figure out like a good way to make decent money if that's your situation. The problem with this rate is you can only cover your bills.
Yeah.
And that's if you're booked 30 hours a week, every single week for 49 weeks a year.
Yeah.
If you get slow, you're not even going to cover your bills.
Yeah.
If you go over, if a project was supposed to take 40 hours, but you spent 60 hours on it or 50 hours on it, that's all going to come off of that total as well. So there's absolutely no room for any kind of growth. There's also no profit for purchasing new computers. If you want to get out of the house and rent office space, there's nothing there. If you want to buy software, if you're going to market or advertise yourself, T-shirts, hats, mailers, Facebook, Instagram posts that you're sponsoring,
ads and stuff like that.
if you want to purchase lists from
it's all just to pay bills.
AIGA, like anything like that, then $68 an hour or $544 a day rate is not going to cut it for you.
Right.
So you have to be able to charge more than just that day rate in order to have any kind of profitable business that can sustain itself. You're going to need cash flow for when you are slow. You're going to need to cover all these extra expenses. So
what percentage over would you say?
So that $68 an hour is not going to cover any of that stuff. I would say at minimum, double that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's if you are wanting to clear that $100,000 mark. Because you may add up your bills and decide that you've got to charge even more than that because you need to make more than $100,000. Because once you start subtracting all these totals, it ends up getting you down to like $70,000 a year or something like that.
Right.
Maybe even less. So I would say in order to find out how much you need to charge, So look at a studio like this. You would start to add up your rent, your salaries, everything that goes into electricity, all of those things. So that's your starting point to figure out how much you should charge.
All your other employees, or taxes, having to pay the taxes for all the employees and stuff like that.
All the overhead.
Yeah. All the overhead. Yeah.
Yep. So that's your starting point to figure out how much you should charge. Because as a studio, obviously we need to make more than $100,000 a year.
Of course. I would hope so.
Yeah. So that's how you figure out how much you should charge, is you start figuring out, how much do I need? Okay, well, that's how much I need to charge minimum. Otherwise, I'm not going to get that.
Right.
Now, here is the catch. The catch is you might not be worth $68 an hour.
Right.
You might not be worth $544 day rate. And that's where this gets difficult.
Yeah.
Because as an owner of a studio, when I'm looking at a freelancer, if I feel like I didn't get a whole lot out of them and I just paid them $800 a day or $600 a day, I'm not going to call them back.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not going to talk to them and say, hey, like, I felt like I didn't get much out of you. Can you discount this? Yeah. I'm just not going to call it back.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be like, oh, man, 2 days into this and they've,
Yeah. They got nothing to show.
Yeah. It's like they're just not going to get called back. So the hardest part about this business, even though now we have kind of like a structure in place of how much to charge, is can I even get paid that?
Yeah.
So you might need that $68 an hour, but if no one's going to pay you for it because they didn't feel you were worth it, then you've got an issue there.
Yeah. So if you encounter that issue, how do you get around it? What's your advice?
Make your work amazing.
Okay.
Focus on being fantastic at what you do.
Yeah. Okay. So that there's a need almost for
there has to be
as the artist.
There has to be a need and a demand for what you do. This is a tangent, but I get concerned about all of the Instagram stars that I see. Because you go to somebody's Instagram feed and you see that they are fantastic at one thing.
Right.
Creating an Instagram post.
But that one thing isn't necessarily useful for delivery on a real project. You know what I mean? It's their personal project and it's killer and it's got all the octane fog you could want, you know?
Garbage geometry, dystopian landscapes.
Yeah, exactly.
Tiny people for scale.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I go to your feed and that's all I see from you, you might get followers, but do you get money for that?
Yeah.
And so I would suggest that you really want to be well-rounded and show that you can do a lot of things to find solutions, because you're kind of putting yourself out there as having found one solution for your personal projects, but nobody knows if you can deliver on a real project or not.
Right.
Huh. All right. That's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
Okay, so
we need like a diagram or a chart or something at this point.
Yeah, if you could make us a chart and just send it to it, that'd be great. Okay, so then let's talk about growing a business.
Yes.
You know? Okay, so you started working from home, right?
Yes.
With who was the gentleman that you were working with initially? Was it just yourself, or was it?
No, I had hired a friend that was straight out of college.
Okay.
And basically, we kind of had a deal with each other, like, hey, you need experience, no one will hire you. But if you could come work here, it's basically like a paid internship. If you like it, it could probably turn into more, and just stay here and grow with the company. If you don't like it, go get a job at an agency and send me a bunch of work.
Yeah.
So we were just kind of open and honest with each other. And that was the first step, first hire. And that was out of my house. And I renovated a spare bedroom in my house. And just really inspired by, sneaker culture and hip hop culture and skateboard culture. So the very first ABC studio out of that bedroom was designed to look like a sneaker store.
Yeah.
So you would walk in and there's like white brick walls, wood everywhere. Everything looked really clean and modern. And when we closed the door to that spare bedroom, you would have thought we were in a loft in New York City, or debell them, or
And did you feel that was really important as far as like being able to stay creative or being able to
feel
separate-
detached from your house?
Yeah, because I wanted him to feel like he had a real job.
Yeah.
And I wanted to feel like I could provide a real job.
Yeah.
I didn't,
Right.
I already knew he was going to be tripping over toys on his way upstairs.
Yeah.
But once we closed that door, we needed to feel like we were legit. And we posted pictures on Facebook, Instagram, and people literally thought we had like this gorgeous, gorgeous studio.
That's really
it was
fun.
gorgeous.
Right. Yeah.
That being said, you do need to find the fine line between being cost effective as a quote unquote startup, but also creating an environment that people want to work.
Yeah.
It's an issue, like if it's you and your friend and you don't mind working off of boxes and a storage unit without air conditioning, do it.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to bring people on that are going to want to work with you and stay there for the long term, you're going to need to create a culture. And that culture is created whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
So even as we moved out of the spare bedroom into our first real space that we were leasing, the very first ABC studio and the way I renovated that room was reminiscent of the second space that we got.
Was that the one in
Yeah.
Allen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it was just a larger version of a sneaker boutique looking type store.
Yeah.
That was, my vision was to be in an old historic building with a big storefront, a lot of daylight coming in.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to feel like if I have to work late at night, I'm somewhere that's kind of fun and exciting.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to feel almost like an art gallery, like when you walk by and you see a painter painting.
I feel like you've accomplished that.
We are doing that. We're just having to be on digital canvases.
Yeah.
So our second studio was, as far as the vibe, looked just like the spare bedroom. And then eventually I decided I was tired of leasing and renovating places that I was leasing. I didn't want to put any more money into that spot. So I bought a historical building about a year ago, renovated that, and we've been in here almost a year now.
Yeah.
And it's
a
got
nice space.
Similar vibe to the spare bedroom. It's all just kind of been an extension of the brand.
Yeah.
Trying to create an environment where people want to work and be and feel creative. And this is a spot I would hang out like on a Friday or Saturday night, regardless of if I'm doing C4D or just getting coffee.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally. All right. So what's the future for ABC?
The future. Well, we want to continue pushing the limits of what we can do creatively, whether that is gear that allows us to do that. I definitely think we'll be dabbling with 360 video and virtual reality.
Yeah.
I don't see us moving into Unity or Unreal at this point.
Okay.
Partially because we would have to have a lot of downtime to explore those things.
Yes.
Right.
And if I have that much downtime, I'd be a little nervous.
Yeah, you'd have a problem.
But again, going back to the rates and how much should you charge? Well, eventually you have to be able to charge enough so that you can do that R&D. Big studios that are much larger than us are charging so much that 5 months out of the year, they're learning Unity and Unreal on another client's dime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how they can do that.
Yeah.
We're not there. I can't go hire somebody to just learn Unity and Unreal for the next year in hopes that it pays off.
Yeah. So would you rather have train one of your guys on that or learn it yourself, or would you rather just hire someone completely, who already knows it really well?
I think if we had to go into that space, we would hire somebody that knows what they're doing there. Obviously, if any of my guys came to me and were like, hey, I really want to learn this, I just need the software.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
The software's free. Sure, I'll pay for that. Got you covered. All right, so let's go back to Octane.
Before we do that real quick, I just wanted to mention that that there is a company called Vitamin T as well, and they put out this salary guide. And I'm going to be interested now to see if this adds up, to what we talked about, because it's not just for motion graphics designers. It's for art directors, creative directors, and people even in digital like print. And then going into development and marketing and other things too. And I thought it was interesting because it's based on numbers that they're pulling in from people that they're sending out in the field. They're kind of a what would you call them? A headhunter type agency.
Yeah, kind of like what's that one here?
Well, their numbers are probably based off of salaried positions, which are going to be completely different than freelance position. Because as a salaried position, you don't have expenses.
Yeah,
of course.
I mean, you have personal expenses, but you're not buying computers, you're not buying software, you're not paying government taxes on your profits, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if anybody that's listening that isn't a freelancer, that's they're sitting at an agency or something right now, and they're thinking about, well, I don't necessarily want to be a freelancer because I don't want to deal with that whole area of it. This would be something good for them to check out as well, because this will kind of let you know, like, if you're really working your way up somewhere and you feel like maybe you're not getting paid what you're worth, this is a good guide. So I'll put that in the show notes as well.
Cool.
Yeah, so let's talk Octane and hardware a little bit.
Yeah, because
let's do it.
Okay, so you got you bought one of the Bison boxes, right?
Okay,
because I need to know this. I've been talking about it on the podcast for like a year now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We haven't received our Bison box yet, because what happened was we bought the latest version of the Bison box. And it only works with Thunderbolt 3.0.
Right.
And our Mac trash cans have Thunderbolt 2.0.
Right.
So we bought an adapter, and we were on the phone with their support team and things like that. So we bought an adapter. The adapter was supposed to solve the problem, but it didn't. So we returned the Bison box because we needed Thunderbolt 3.0.
Right.
And so now I think what we're doing is we're waiting for that return. And we're going to go with the old Bison box that has Thunderbolt 2.0.
Okay. I see.
That should solve our problems.
Okay. Well, you know what? Let me read this email question one of our email questions that we got, because I think it's really relevant to this right now. Before we go any further, because it talks, it's talking about, the old cheese grater Macs as opposed to the trash cans, and then, of course, we are all getting into PCs as well. But, this is from Craig, who says, on one of your previous shows, you mentioned that putting a 1080 Ti into a cheese grater Mac would be like putting a supercharger in a Corsica. And I have an old unused 2010 Mac Pro with the 12 core, and I had thoughts of maxing out the RAM, putting in an SSD, and installing a 1080 Ti. Do you have any thoughts on this? I'm currently using a 2013 trash can, which isn't any help, thinking about Octane. Would it just be wiser to go with the PCI expansion? Also, my fear is the future of OS X won't support the cheese grater. All good points. I wrote back, I basically said, number one, we have done extensive testing with like 900 series in old cheese grater Macs. Haven't done the 1080 Ti's, any of the 10 series, although I heard now that the drivers are available. And then, so I said, I haven't personally tried it, but I do know that like when I had a top of the line trash can decked out, Fire Pro card Mac, the $10,000 edition, it didn't feel any faster than my 2009 SSD, dual 980 Ti system with the extra power supplies. On paper, like the speed is different. Like it is better to have that trash can. But when you're working with what we're working with, you don't notice the difference. And the other thing, of course, that I brought up was the fact that you may need a Thunderbolt 2 to 3 converter, which I'm glad you brought that up, that it didn't work. Is it worth it right now to try and do all of this stuff just to stay on Mac? What are your thoughts on that?
Barton, what do you think?
All right. So just a disclaimer, we've been trying to figure out that exact same question ourselves. I have a bunch of Mac trash cans and cheese graters laying around. My understanding, as some of the guys that I work with here have educated me on, is that you can go with something like a Bison box for relatively cheap. It's like around $600. If you have 3.0 Thunderbolt, you'll be fine. You can just get the newest version of the Bison box. If you do not,
what I don't think any of the Macs at all have 3.0, right?
Right. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know exactly.
That seems weird to me.
That
because Bison box, from my understanding, is just a hacked Akito.
Hokkaido.
Yeah, something like that. It's like,
here we go with the pronunciations again.
I know. So from what I understand, Bison just takes these boxes and then just hacks them in a way that they will work, for Mac or something like that. But it seems confusing to me that they would even put Thunderbolt in there as 3 as an option. Yeah, I don't know. I could be completely wrong.
What we kind of landed on is that for $600 plus the price of whatever GPU you want to throw in there, I want to throw a Titan in there. Then you can make your Macs around the studio useful, and we will use it portably so that we can, if somebody else needs it, they can unplug and go jump on another Mac. So all of a sudden, it's a relatively cheap option to have our Macs be usable and also not have to go, buy a brand new computer, which is going to cost a lot more than that. So we're going to try it out with the Bison box, I guess 2.0, to see how that works for us. Going with that versus the cheese grater. The reason we didn't go with the cheese grater, a couple things. One, my understanding is you could put a GPU straight into the box itself, but you're going to be limited on airflow. You're not going to be able to overclock it because of the limited space for cooling and things like that. There are racks that allow you to connect with a PCI Express card, and that is the best option that I know of to be able to work with the cheese grater Macs, and it's a fantastic option.
Okay.
We did not go with that because the racks are quite a bit more expensive. So I didn't feel like it was worth investing $3 or $4,000 just to get the Macs up on Octane.
Are you worried that, Apple's made a semi-announcement that they're moving over to a more quote unquote modular design? Does that, are you holding off at all on purchasing any more computers because of that, or are you just going to be like, nah, we're just going PC?
We'll be on PCs. I think Macs are fantastic for emails.
Well, they're apparently great for recording audio as well.
Yes.
Recording my PC won't work.
No, it is funny. I am a Mac man by nature. I've just been on them forever.
Yeah.
But it's been a depressing...
it has been.
Depressing decline. I feel like as artists, we were the ones that kept them in business. And then in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then we just got kind of sharted on when the phones came around. So...
That's funny. All right. So going back to Octane, you said you moved over to Octane about a year ago?
Yes.
What were you guys using before that? Were you using any other render engines?
Just physical.
Just physical?
Yeah, physical, and we were having to outsource the rendering to render farms just because it was crazy. We were working on these Star Wars spots for Nixon watches.
Yeah, those are nice.
And the renders were insane.
Yeah.
I wish we could have done every single spot in Octane. We did one of them in Octane. The rest were in physical render.
Did you feel like did you feel like there was like almost a quality difference between physical and Octane when you started working on it? Or were you just like, it looks about the same, but it was just so much easier?
No, I definitely wish we could have done all of them in Octane. That being said, Brian, who works with us, he was able to tweak like physical settings to get it looking really nice on some of those spots.
I've seen, I'm this is embarrassing to admit, but the first time I played around with physical renderer was at NAB just a few weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You just been on Octane the whole time?
I've been on Octane for almost 2 years.
Okay.
And like I moved over, I went from just standard renderer, doing little logo spins and stuff.
Yeah.
Then moved over to V-Ray and learned V-Ray.
Oh, okay.
And then from V-Ray, like I fell in love with V-Ray because it looked a bit much more realistic than just standard renderer.
Yeah.
You know, but then immediately moved over to Octane.
Yeah.
And I've been on Octane ever since.
Nice.
So I don't know. What are some of the big, I don't know, as a studio, you know, because a lot of the studios are using V-Ray or Arnold or something like that, you know. It's I don't know. I want to say it's kind of niche to be doing Octane as a studio or something like that. But
yeah.
I don't know, because it's not really, it's growing in popularity, you know. Do you ever run into issues with like first of all, do clients even know the render engines at all, you know, or do they just see, you know, hey, that's a pretty picture?
I mean, clients have definitely noticed the difference and the value in the realism between physical and Octane.
Mm-hmm.
So that's allowed us to be able to really step up our game as far as product renders go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they called it I think Chad Ashley calls it something, the Octane, what is it called? The Octane Conundrum or something, to where once a project...
Once a project becomes almost like too big or something at a certain point, you're
it falls apart when you have too many polygons.
And also, you know, if you've got so much going on in the scene, like, you know, say you've got atmosphere and say you've got, you know, subsurface scattering and stuff, it almost, you know, sometimes
render time is ridiculous.
Render time is ridiculous and could almost like be rendered in a whole another render engine for the same amount of time.
Yes.
You know?
Yep. Yeah. So that's been
scalability is what he said.
A minor issue for us. And I think the reason that's been a minor issue for us is because up until recently, I've always been hesitant to call us a 3D animation studio. I've always called us a design and motion graphics studio.
Okay.
Because in my mind, there's a difference between motion graphics and 3D animation. Now, motion graphics is 3D and has to be if you want a career in it. But what I do as a designer is totally different than what Pixar does.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, there's some crossover.
Yeah.
Because by nature, we're telling stories. But, you know, for years, I viewed motion graphics as more animated design work. We, as a studio, have been pushing ourselves further and further into 3D animation.
Yes.
So, like,
you had just recently the little VR. Which, you know, you actually had a fully animated character.
Yeah,
correct?
we had fully character animated robot that we, you know, developed. We had animated dinosaurs.
All the stuff like coming on, you know, the whole like suit.
Yeah, so we were doing visual effects.
We came
like
in a few weeks ago or a few months ago, and we saw which one of your guys was the guys who modeled it?
Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas was showing it to us, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I created this in like an afternoon or something." It's like, that's ridiculous. That is so good. Yeah. So anyway, kudos to you for that.
Yeah. So we've been, you know, moving further and further in that direction, and Octane's allowed us to even consider it. You know, before Octane, we couldn't have done any of these spots.
Yeah.
Like the Star Wars spots were hard enough.
Yeah.
For us to pull off in physical, and the amount of time it takes to render and catch mistakes and things like that. So from our perspective, you know, Chad's coming from a much larger world than I come from. And so those Octane challenges are probably a very frustrating challenge. But for us, we're like, whoa, like, look at what we can do. You know?
Yeah.
So we're not even really concerned about the limitations yet. Yeah.
Have you found problems with hiring freelancers and being like, hey, we use Octane. Do you know Octane? You know, because I don't know how big the community is. I'm sure the community of Octane users versus the community of just like physical renderers, you know, or standard renderer even, you know, is much smaller. So do you, first of all, how do you go about finding your freelance workers, you know, and then also knowing that they have the skills in order to, you know, really do what you guys need?
Yeah. Well, with the freelancers, we are able to find Octane users, but most of the time we're able to get everything done internally.
Yeah.
So it's not too much of an issue. Because like I said, if we are outsourcing it, it's like a lot of things that just need to get done. So that hasn't been a huge issue for us because our internal team gets us what we need to do. No matter what the scale of the project is, it's just a matter of being overbooked. It would be why we are freelancing. And so worst case, that person doesn't need to render or see what it looks like. They just need to animate it.
Yeah.
So they can open it up, animate it, shoot it back to us, and
you guys can texture, light, and
or it can already be textured and lit.
Yeah.
They don't need to see what it looks like.
Yeah.
They just need to go in and animate it.
Yeah.
So there's ways around
that's
it.
nice. Being a freelancer and not having to render.
Right. Yeah.
That's one of my worries too, because we have only a small handful of actual Octane contractors, and it's like, if I were to just pull somebody out of the blue, there's so many questions. Like, do they know enough about poly count? Do they know enough about instancing? How to make an optimized scene, something they give back to us, and we don't have to sit there and restructure
and
it.
they're like, oh, this is taking me 15 minutes of frame to render, and then we open it up and we're able to optimize it. It's like,
you have 10 million polygons. What is going on?
Yeah, most of the people who email us and say, hey, what's going on with my Octane scene? It's like, well, how many polygons do you have?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like 10 million or something. Why can't I get it to render? There's your problem right there.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. So, what else we got? Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
Sure. Well, is there anything else in that area? Hardware, Octane?
No, I'm not a hardware guy at all. I'm just regurgitating to you things that my team has taught me as we've been evaluating, which systems to purchase or not purchase.
Yeah. Did you find the transition over from physical render to Octane to be really easy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dive into some of the node-based editing in Octane at all.
I don't either.
So
Unless it's almost connect like 3 scales all to the same one.
Yeah,
that's it.
Octane is almost like my experience with Cinema 4D originally, which was, whoa, I can get some really great looking stuff fast and easy.
Yeah.
Without a learning curve whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, there's a lot more to Octane that I don't know.
Right.
That you can do a lot with the node-based.
Yeah, but I feel like that's all Cinema 4D. But there's so much there. It's such a robust system that it's like, how are you going to be able to learn everything?
Yeah.
I know.
And there's a lot of talk about PBR stuff right now, like textures. All of this. What's the name of the program? Always escapes my mind.
Substance Designer.
Substance Designer.
Have you used Substance Designer at all?
No.
It's pretty cool. Yeah. Like being able to, it's a very cool. It's almost like it's a sole program just for creating textures and stuff like that. It's
creating neat. Textures that are
repeatable or what's the term? What's the term?
I know the term.
Yeah, you know the term.
Everybody's shouting at us right now. So that, you
procedural.
have
That's
procedural,
the word.
yes.
Yeah.
So, you can create these procedural textures, but then you can bring them into just about anything. It'll work with the game engine.
So
it'll work with,
you're using,
Cinema, Octane or whatever.
You're using Substance Designer in order to create materials, and then you can actually export the individual, normals layers and bump layer and all that stuff, in order to, and you're creating it all. And I believe, does it use iRay for the little render preview? Is that what it is?
I believe it does.
Yeah,
I believe that's
it's got
using,
a little, sphere or cube or whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that, because it's GPU based, it's like super fast updating on it. I don't need to sell you on Substance Designer.
But here's the thing, they're trying to also not only do that with textures, but now Turbo Squid has come out with this new thing called Stem Cell. And
that's weird.
They just announced it. It's supposed to be like the same thing, but for textures.
Wait, so Turbo Squid is coming out with its very own, program?
It's kind of. It's called Stem Cell. It says consistent content, consistent rules everywhere. Imagine the world's. results. Sorry.
Yeah.
Imagine the world's largest library of 3D models available in any format. TurboSquid is proud to announce a breakthrough in 3D model standardization called Stem Cell. 3D artists will soon be able to build a model in their preferred format, upload it to TurboSquid, and receive perfect conversions to other formats, including major game engines. So they're trying to do this
for TurboSquid because they're probably tired of having to spend their their resources converting files over for people who need them.
Well, I mean, they do that for free too, you know, like if you buy a model for them. So, but it allows you to focus on the model and, you know, get something like we've probably all done it before. We've gone to TurboSquid and we found the perfect model, except it was done in 3D Max.
But I would think that you would have to work specifically within their system in order to make it look right.
Well, this is supposed to be taking care of that because what happens is somebody designs something in 3D Max right now, and they do, even if they do a conversion, they give it to you, and what do you get? You don't get like the proper selection tags, and you don't get like the proper layering and the proper, you know, you bring it in usually
give you an FBX and the lighting doesn't look the same and stuff like that.
Right. It's just kind of, it's supposed to be that you get it and it just feels like it was completely done natively in whatever program you're using. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that it does is there's, you know, you'll have to, we'll post the link in the show notes and everything. The other thing that it does is it lets you see all of the layers. It lets you see all of the models in the browser when you're looking at it. One of the hardest things to do is search for a model and not really know if you're getting the right thing when you buy it. You know, I don't like what they use for the example of this Apollo rocket or whatever because it has really, really crappy texturing on it. But if you look at other, if you look at other stuff though, like the Snake, they're gonna have like a browser for everything where you click on this little diagonal layer button and you can see the normals, you can see specular gloss reflectivity, everything in there, and really get a sense of, okay, this is a good model, this isn't a good model, are the textures going to work? And then you don't have to worry about, okay, well, this looks all fine and good, but this was done in Maya. Yeah. You know? So it's pretty interesting. I'll be interested to see where it goes, but we'll put a link in the show notes for that as well.
I mean, that looks pretty cool, you know. But I mean, honestly, like if you were just able to see, especially with TurboSquid, just being able to see and rotate around instead of just seeing images and being able to zoom in, like you know, just on some of these ones, like you were talking about the rocket one, just zooming in, I can tell that from a distance it's great, but up close it looks terrible.
Right.
You know.
But see, at least you know before you buy it, right?
Yeah. But it seems to me like they could add in that functionality anyway.
Yeah. So two other quick things. There's a site called texture.ninja. And I guess it's free.
I saw about that.
It's free, so, you know, it's not the biggest library, but if you're looking for some textures, you can find that there. And then somebody posts on the Octane group this week, it's like a command line compiler thing that they came out with for doing your own texturing, especially when it comes to normal maps. It's called DeBarty, I guess that's the name of the website, and he's got his own deal here where you can take the pictures. He shows, you know, how you do your, because there's a certain way to go about doing pictures and doing texturing. Whenever you're
take it into Photoshop and then just say create a normal map, right?
Well, when you're creating real normals, you've got to get these different angles and stuff. And he has posted actually how like some of the stuff that he's made using his own system. And I think he is posting this as a free thing, if I'm not mistaken, like the capture tool. So, you know, you still have to do the lighting. He shows how to do it, but it compiles it all for you.
How do you spell that?
DABARTI.com. And then if you go over to tools, you can see it's the capture system. And if you click on read more in the capture system, you can, at the bottom, you can see some of the things that were actually designed with it, which is really cool.
Oh, wow. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. We got anything else?
That's all I got note-wise. What about, you guys?
I got nothing.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pardon. Totally.
Let's talk NAB presentations. Matt, yours is already out. Barton,
Yes.
yours is not out yet, is it?
Not that I know of.
No,
Okay, and mine isn't out yet
yours
either.
is
So
not yet.
hopefully soon they will be coming out, so you can check those out. And
Hey, I wanted to give a big shout out to all of our listeners. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hit like a huge milestone in numbers last week, and I don't know if this was actually it or whether just when Squarespace moved over
changed everything.
their analytics or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had
Cool.
a big, huge spike in listeners and stuff, and it hit us over a threshold that we've been trying to hit for a couple months. So thank you guys so much for listening.
Yeah.
We really appreciate every single person who subscribes to us.
Totally. You can. What's today's date? We're almost done with our contest for
Yes.
iTunes reviews to get a free T-shirt. So if you
see
want
if
to
there's
get in
any
that
new ones.
little
I'm sure there's
contest, leave us a review on iTunes. It helps with our ratings as well, and you could subscribe to that as well. That helps with the ratings as well. So if you're just a listener on Vimeo, YouTube, or you just listen on the website, you download it separately. That helps get our RSS numbers up. It helps get our numbers up as far as our iTunes ranking. So help us out with that as well. You can subscribe to our newsletter. You can check out our shirts. You can say you've been there, done that, got the T-shirt with the No Mograph tee, the Paul Babb shirt, the limited edition Gate DeSimone shirt, which will not be there forever. And we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course YouTube and Brograph.com.
Barton, where can people find you?
My Instagram is @BartonDamer. If you want to follow my personal one and see pictures of puppies as well as renders, or if you only want to see pictures of renders, go to @AlreadyBeenChewed.
Awesome.
Great.
Barton, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Yes, we'll have to do another one.
Cool.
For sure. Well, it'll be a continuing series, hopefully. So
Yeah.
Let's just do the next one at Dead Mouse House.
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
Let's do it. All right. Until next week, I'm Dave.
And I'm Matt.
And I'm Barton.
Have a good one.
Later, bros.
It's pretty good, I guess. Brograph.com, an online resource for learning critical components of Cinema 4D and After Effects, specifically catered to help you prevail as a motion graphic designer.
What's up, bros? Welcome to another Brograph motion graphics tutorial.
We give you professional time-saving tips, shortcuts, and lessons that help give you an edge over your fellow designers. Not only this, but our new Brograph Talks help you in your file management, hardware configuration, and client relations.
I love projects that scare me. When our art director comes to us and asks for something that I had never done before, man, it gets me pumped.
Join us for live sessions, check out our crazy Cinema 4D experiments, or just watch our Fun with Brograph series, where we show you practical applications for techniques learned in previous tutorials. Do this from the beginning, and your client is going to respect that, and they're going to respect you, and they're going to respect your time. Subscribe today and get automatic updates on the latest tutorials, tricks, tips, and inspiration brought to you by industry professionals Dave Koss and Matt Milstead, all with a slight dash of dry humor peppered in. Real nice banana.
Brograph.com, your source for tutorials that will help you thrive in the motion graphics industry. Don't just play around with Cinema 4D and After Effects, master it, and make money by becoming indispensable at your workplace.
We don't care how you get here, folks. Just get here. Subscribe now to Brograph Tutorials. It's pretty good, I guess.